6, we got Daniel DJ Holdsworth with us, former NRL player, now assistant coach with the Cronulla Sharks, and also Deej spent a bit of time with Samoa at the World Cup as well, and they went on a bit of a run after getting touched up early on as well. So, welcome, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hey, it's good to have a chat to you. I haven't seen you or spoke to you for a while, man. So good to catch up. It's good to see you going well, man.
Talk to us a little bit about your background, Deej.
Oh yeah. So obviously grew up a big leaguey fan. My journey was a little bit different. We sort of mum and dad decided to move to WA when I was a young tacker. So. About 8 or 9 years old, we moved over there. Mum and dad are from sort of Bankstown area over here, Reesby, sort of Padstow area. We moved to WA. Played all my junior footy over in West Australia in Perth, and then sort of lucky enough to get a crack over in a couple of different competitions in the eastern states, bro. And then a few scouts around. It sort of just gained some momentum. From there, and then I was lucky enough to sign a deal with Penrith early days, mate, and yeah, that was the sort of start of it, you know.
So, I remember we sort of crossed paths when we were at that tournament in Darwin in '99 under 15s, and myself and Birdie, Matty Lantry, and them bumped into you guys. We actually stayed at the same place at that St John's College in Darwin, eh? Lord Ted Goodwin was there, eh? Bronx was involved. So you spent a lot of time with them fellas growing up too, Deej. What was that like? Did you like? I mean, when we were in the camp at 15, I didn't know too much about Lord Ted Goodwin. You know what I mean? And here we are brushing shoulders with him. Like, did you know a lot about him growing up?
Mate, I kind of just got goosebumps then, eh? Like I remember that carnival like it was yesterday, eh? Like staying in those dorms and hanging out with you fellas, and like I don't know, as a kid, I suppose in WA, like playing footy was so far, like so out of my reach, you know. You guys were the best of the best at that age group, so it was like, you know, you guys were the pinnacle then. I remember sort of like watching you get around and idolising you a bit, and like, oh, far out. And it was just such a good vibe, eh? As a 15-year-old, you know, young man, it was awesome, eh? Had a real good time then, good memories, and yeah, like the good ones were unreal for me, eh? Like I'm good mates with Bronx, and he's on a coaching journey at the moment too. You know, he's coaching reserve grade at the Dragons. And yeah, I'm a little bit the same as you. I didn't really realise Lord Ted was Lord Ted, you know. Like I kind of just hanging along, and you know, and he was just, he never sort of try to force that upon you. He was just being Ted, being him, and he's always real supportive of all those lads. Then you know, we were super lucky, at that time, you know. Kind of took that stuff, well, not for granted, but it just didn't really have that impact that I thought it does now, you know.
And Deej, growing up, like, I mean, you talked about moving over there when you were a young fella. Did you move back because you had opportunities with the league and the parents sort of brought you back, or did you make a move back because you still had strong connection in Sydney with the fam?
No, mum and dad were in WA, mate. So I signed a deal with Penrith, so I ended up going into a footy house and, you know, having to get a job and train in the Arvo and all that kind of stuff. So a big learning curve for me. It was it was to do with footy, straight off the bat. I don't know if I would have been able to do it any other way, man. So I'm super lucky for that. But I sort of moved over. I was only telling this story this morning actually. I had a coffee with Ronaldo Mulatalo, and I actually told him the story about how I remember ringing my old man and saying, I'm done, this is too much for me, and going home, you know, homesick, and it was, he was a little bit similar to, so it's, you know, it's so fair, it's so common for clubs these days to get those young kids in and have to sort of manage through that, you know.
So, Deej, I remember when we were at Penrith together there too, and I was only thinking about this morning, but I remember the cool bike you rocked up at. So did mum and dad move over to Cronulla, or where? Because I feel like you were living out at Cronulla way when we were at Penrith as well. Is that right?
I did, bro. Yeah. Yeah, I did. Yeah, in my second year, I did. Yeah, I ended up moving in with Bronx, bro.
Yeah,
So
right.
he was at the Sharks, if you remember. Yeah, so I lived with Bronx and Joe and Ted. And yeah, sort of made me way out to Penrith. I kind of, I don't know, more than anyone, you get that sort of feeling of where you sort of belong. So I
Yeah.
just felt comfortable near the beach, man. It just sort of made me happier. And yeah, I had to do the long trek out to Penrith, bro.
I'll
Long
never
days.
forget the
But
morning we went
yeah,
out and done Wanda Sand Hills, and all the boys got off the bus. We
yeah,
got off the bus. We were waiting around, and then you rock up with that big beach cruiser. It was like
yeah,
the
bro.
big beach cruiser that Debo was rolling around in on Friday.
Yeah, yeah.
It was the coolest
Good
little bike
times, eh?
I've seen, ever. Coming from a little
Yeah,
country
yeah.
town, and we had the little mountain bike or a little BMX, and then here to see you coming
It's
cruising with the
whatever you
big
can
beach
get, eh?
cruiser. It was like a big Harley Davidson. That was
Yeah.
cool as.
Oh, good times, man. Good
So
times.
with Penrith Deej, you played sort of what age groups were you playing there, and what sort of success did you have at Penrith? Because I didn't know this until sort of the other day when I had a yarny and sort of locked this yarn in, but because I thought you started at Penrith, you debuted there, but you didn't. You moved on and you debuted somewhere else, eh? So talk to us about
Yeah, I
the
did, mate.
transition from
Yep.
Penrith. Yeah.
Yeah, so I struggled, mate, to be honest. So like I was obviously a fairly good player in WA, right? So I'd come over and I didn't really understand the enormity of what I was doing. So I really struggled, at the start, and it just leaked into my footy, just being real homesick and not really loving the environment, and just I wasn't me, right? So it wasn't really that successful at Penrith. But what happened is I had a sign for 2 years, so my 2 years was up basically. So that's why I moved on.
Yep.
And how it come about was Nathan Brown was the head coach at the Dragons, and he was one of the clubs that was interested in me originally before I signed with Penrith. So you know how it works, bro, with the managers doing what they do. So he kind of just offline basically, based on pure reputation of what he's seen a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
And I end up just I started in Jersey Flegg. Steve Price was actually my head coach, who I'm coaching with now, the assistant at the Sharks. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and I kind of went from, like, I don't know, I was a homesick kid a year ago being at home to like playing 20s, and I played 6 games at Jersey Flegg and debuted round 7. So it just went like from there to there, like real quick, Yeah, so that was a really exciting time for me. Got some confidence, felt at home there, and yeah, just that was the start of it. Played at the Dragons for 2 years, and then I was lucky enough to get the deal at the Dogs after that. Yeah.
So how did you did you feel like you just when you talked about the confidence and wanting to go home and like struggling to sort of adapt? How did you go from being in Flag and a little bit of Reggie's at Penrith to straight in the NRL sort of 8 months later, 6 months later? Did you put a lot of work in off season, because you're always fit, like you always trained well, but what did you do more of or better in that time frame to get your start so quickly?
Yeah, mate. I always trained well. I felt like that was a part of my
Mm.
DNA. I was always a really good trainer. So I suppose, like, I was just 2 years on. I sort of understood what it meant to be away from home. I sort of was comfortable in where I was in life, in my situation. I had a job at the surf shop, which is right up my alley, and I was probably physically bigger anyway. I could handle the sort of contact and playing men at, reserve grade back then was actually like, all those first graders dropped down. So I had that little sort of education and schooling of playing against men for a while. So I was always confident. I got some confidence out of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I feel like it just I had a few good games in a row, and it happened so fast that I was just rolling with it. I was just on a little bit of a roll, and then played good on my debut, and it just sort of snowballed from there. I just gained confidence, and just kept rolling with it, mate. To be honest.
Who was good for you in your early years, Deej?
Coaching wise?
Yeah, or even players, like who sort of encouraged you to, to believe in yourself and take the next step? Can you remember?
Well, Steve Price is one of them. He was really good for me. He was a young coach. He was only 26 at the time, so he was really awesome. And then I had Mick Potter as assistant coach, who I don't know, I just really resonated with him. He's got a dry sense of humour. He's pretty blunt. He called it as it was, and I respond to that. So I really enjoyed sort of his coaching,
Yeah.
So that was enjoyable. And then like the guys that I played with, like we just had an unreal crew, like Firmo, and like we had Clint Greenshield and Youngquest and like Andrew Delavano. We just had a real good gang, I just really enjoyed it.
What about Nick Youngquest, Deej? What was it like? Like, obviously, you played a lot of footy with him and would have known him around the Shire. What's the vibe now with him? Like, apparently he's a multi, and he's the global model with some of these like massive companies worldwide. Is that right?
Yeah, he had a good run, Youngie. He's actually back in the Shire now. But yeah, he's got a good story, man. He'd be worth reaching out to. Far out. He's lucky enough to, he auditioned for that Paco Rabanne job, which is the fragrance company, and he landed the gig. So he had a good run there, like good sort of journey, seeing the world and working, and he's back in the Shire now. He's doing this sort of foundation, sort of athletes foundation, where they gets groups together and try to achieve something for some kind of foundation, mate. Yeah, so he's doing well,
Yeah, nice. Talk to us a little bit about the Bulldogs journey, Deej, because you played with. What year did you go there? Did you strike all the guns? Like, was Sonny still there? Was Willie Tonga still there? Like Sonny Bill Williams? Obviously, Mace still there? Talk to us a little bit about your journey at the Dogs,
mate. I'm so lucky, Like I bowled into the Dogs. They won the premiership in 04, and I got there 05. So they actually come last in 05, right? So they won the premiership last, or not last, but like I don't know, down the bottom. So I bowled into that team. Braith had moved on. He signed with the Roosters, so there was an opening there, and they clearly needed a young half that didn't cost them much because of the squad they had. So I bowled in, mate. We had General, Haslam, Willie, Rennie, Roy, Mace, Oga, Nate Milesy, like Adam Perry, Corey Hughes. Like it was something else, But again, like looking back now, it's like you have to pinch yourself. But at the moment, I was just getting on with it. These guys are NRL players, and I was in a good team. And I don't know. I just look back now and just realise how lucky I was.
We talk about this with a couple of the older guests, but there was always a pecking order back in those sort of days. That was sort of where it was a little bit weaned out. But before then, it was always a pecking order. Did you ever were you ever made to feel like you got to earn your stripes from guys like that who, like you said, 2004 they win the comp, and then obviously everyone is, a lot of them are split up because they just can't afford to keep everyone, right? But the names that you mentioned there, still a strong squad. How did you carry yourself? Like, did you walk in with a bit of swagger, or did you feel like they made you sort of earn your stripes and say, hey, this is where you got to start? You're not up here with the big boys yet, but what was that like, brother?
Yeah. You bang on. Like I walked in as a sort of cocky, blonde-haired, surfy kid that thought I was going good. I'd played a few first grade games and still only 19 or 20 then. So it was like, I'll never forget that first preseason. Like the late great folks, he sort of taught me what it took to be a first grader, right? Like he said, no, this is how you prepare to be a first grader, and you need to get yourself to this physical sort of shape to be able to handle it, And his philosophy as a coach, which was embedded in the club and obviously ingrained in all the players, was like, if we're winning, it's because we trained hard, right? And if we weren't winning, we're not training hard enough. So it was just this constant week days of just having to prove yourself and go hard, eh? But I'll never forget the first preseason. I was exposed to something I'd never been exposed to before in how hard they trained, eh? I was just like, but again, it got me to a place where I was better for it. And in terms of the pecking order on the vocal stuff, you knew exactly where you stood at that club with Ogre and Mace and all those lads. It's like you can't get away with doing anything there. They'll call you out straight away. So I gave as good as I got, I suppose.
Where to from the dog? Do you think that's where you played your best footy, Deej, at the Dogs?
Oh, mate, I reckon I played better overseas, to be honest. I had a good couple of years at the Dogs, but I don't know. I was still fairly young then. I felt like when I got older, I sort of looked after myself a little bit better off the field, and ate a bit better, and I didn't drink that much, and I felt like I'd seen the game a bit clearer. I felt like my better years were in England. I had 4 years in England. I thought I probably played my best footy over there. Again, it's a different style of footy too. So some say it's easier, some say it's more open, but it's definitely different, and it probably suited me a little bit more, to be honest.
Less pressure too, DJ. A lot of the players talk about less pressure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and it's a real thing, right? So, probably that again too. I played for a team called Salford, which is like in Manchester, where no one knows who you are. Like no one even cares that you're playing. Like it's all soccer and English Premier League. So it's zero pressure, only from internal in your team, and it definitely has some kind of bearing on you. But yeah, I felt like England. I played some good footy over there, bro.
How did you stay for so long, Deej? Because a lot of players sort of go over, and it's either you stay there for 4, 6, 8 years, make a career out of it over there, like Luke Dawn. Walshy had a couple of years over there, but
yeah,
I remember Dennis Moore, and even early on, like went over and he had like eight years, I feel like, over there.
Yeah.
What? Because a lot of them say, the boys used to say that sun was it was dark when you went to training, it was dark when you came home from training because there wasn't much sunlight, right? A lot of the time. So how do you stay mentally strong, especially when you're on the other side of the world, away from all your family, brother?
Yeah, that was hard, man. Like looking back again, like the retrospect of being able to look back now, I was probably a bit like I reckon I was a bit naive. As soon as footy season finished, right, I just wanted to get home to Australia. I was just like, I've got to get home. Want to get home. I'll do whatever I could. I'd be on the plane the next day, And I thought I'd just rush home to see me mates, rush home to get to the beach, and then like you get here for 2 days, and like you forget everyone else has got their own lives. They're all at work, and their own thing, and yeah. But I suppose, like, if I had me time again, I'd probably try to see a bit more of England and Europe. But
Europe, yeah.
it does wear you down, man. The weather, like as you said, it doesn't get light to 8:39 in the morning, and then the sun's going down at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the depths of winter. So it's pretty. It's an eye opener, It's something really different, but good experience. You just got to go with an open mind. I never really let it like drag me down, like kicking cans around. I just sort of took it for what it was and enjoyed it. Like they're all like the English lads are. I find them really similar to the Aussie culture. They love the banner. They love to sledge each other and have a good time. And I really enjoyed it. But it is hard.
Who sort of looked after you over there, or were there any Aussie boys over there that sort of you spent a lot of time with from your club or other clubs?
So I was lucky enough. General Luke Patton ended up signing at my club that I was at the year after I left. So that was nice. Lived next door to me for a couple of years, which is cool. had a few different players, like Jolie Moon was there for a little bit. So he was only a young pup then. He came over pretty early. He's one of those guys that had a pretty long career over in the UK, ended up going to Leeds for a while. And I've been mates with Fitzy for a while. So Fitzy was over there at the similar time to I was. He was playing at Hull FC, a different club, but we used to catch up with the girls and that a fair bit. Yeah. So you've always got your little Aussie sort of contingents you get around. But yeah, they're all good lads, man. I had a good time, mate. We had a real good crew.
Who was good for you over there in terms of your coaching staff and that, Deej? Because you stayed for 4 years. So was all 4 years at Salford, or did you move around?
I actually went to Hull FC in my last year. So I had 3 years at Salford, and then I played at Hull FC. I was only thinking about this today, actually, when obviously thinking about coming on here. I had a coach at Hull FC. His name's Peter Gentle. I don't know if you remember Pete, but he's only recently stopped coaching. He was assistant at the Dragons last year. He was my head coach at Hull, and I really enjoyed it. I remember this one moment. I sort of stayed behind at training, and then I was coaching some of the younger kids there, like coming through their pathways, and I just jumped on the field. I was just mucking around, showing them some footy, and I remember the moment he looks at me and goes, "You're gonna coach one day, eh, bro?" Like that. And I just sort of shrugged it off, you know. I just didn't. I just thought I was just doing something that I felt come natural to me, you know, just helping out the young kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pete was really good for me. Yeah, good fella, and he helped me a lot. Yeah, so he was good, mate.
Who was in your playing career, Deej? So after England, did you came back and played NRL again after England, or?
Yeah, at the Sharks, mate.
At the
yeah,
Sharks.
Yeah, I come back to the Sharks.
And how long did you have at the Sharkies before you retired?
Yeah, so when I come back from England, I actually just come back for the off season. I had another couple of years to go on my deal in England, and I just got home, and I was just like, man, I was 30 at the time, and I don't know. It sort of, my manager just rang me one day and said, "Hey, Cronulla are looking for like a third half, you know, third or fourth half. Are you interested in sort of coming?" Like, you know, they had Jeff Robbo and Toddy Carney at the time, you know, so
Yeah.
it was sort of no guarantees to be, you know, first half, but it kind of appealed to me, mate, because I'm local, so we just navigated through that and ended up signing just with Cronulla for 1 year, and then by the end of that, I kind of realised like that was the time like Val Holmes and all that crew was coming through, right? So I'm at training just trying to keep up with him. I'm just going, I'm so done. So I had 1 year at the Sharks, and ended up sort of transitioning out after that.
And did after Sharks, because you're back there now, obviously coaching, assistant coach there doing the blue shirt. Did they talk you about coaching the young fellas then, or was that ever on your mind? You said you did a little bit in England, but did you dabble in it after you retired?
So my coaching journey sort of didn't start till. So when I retired, I was 31. I was nowhere near an NRL player anymore. So, but I still wanted to play footy. I ended up signing with West Wollongong, right? So I suppose the sister to West up in right.
Yeah.
Which again, you would know the standard of that competition is pretty good. So I signed down there for 2 years, and I loved it. I just played with a bunch of guys that all they were ever going to be was good, solid first graders in that competition. But they really they loved the club, and they loved training, they loved each other, and I had a good time. So I'm so glad I committed to going back and playing that level of footy. I really enjoyed it. But there was a moment. Jason Riles was the head coach at the time, the first year, and then he ended up going to Melbourne the second year. And I was in talks with the club. I was playing halfback at the time. I was in talks with the club about captain coaching, and it was like a bit of a moment where I had to sort of think about, maybe that's something I might have a crack at, you know. And then what they did is they ended up giving the job to Brett Kamali, right? And good, like they did what they needed to do at the time. I got no qualms about it, but I remember how much it hurt. I was just like, what?
Right.
I got real disappointed that I wasn't the coach, you know, and I thought, why do I care so much, you know? So that was a little bit of a spark for me to go, well, maybe that's kind of what I want to do, you know? I ended up reaching out to a friend of the family, Benny Anderson, who's Chris Anderson's son. He was actually coaching the 20s at the Bulldogs at the time. One of my close mates was assistant coaching him, so I just asked if I could sort of tack along, knowing that I'd played there and whatever. I'd sort of be welcome there to just show up. No real role. I just wanted to be around it. And I sort of did that for that year, and I loved it. So, after that, I was kind of lucky enough, just with my connections at the Shark. John Morris was the 20s coach at the Sharks, so I played with him in 14, and he asked me to come and assist the 20s with him the year after. So, it all just sort of went from there, bro.
Before we get into talking about the coaching stuff full on, with the footy, with your playing career, who you reckon was the best that you played with, and the fellow that you always dreaded, like playing against in your position, or even the best player you played against?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Sort of the best talent I ever played with, I reckon, was Gaz.
Yeah.
I played with SBW, but I played with him like really early doors. He was obviously freaky, but he probably didn't hit his straps till after I'd moved on, and he went to rugby union and then come back.
Yeah.
But I played with Gaz, and Gaz was in his prime in those couple of years when I was at the Dragons. He was just amazing, the stuff he could do at training and on the field. So he's probably the most talented, out and out talented bloke I thought I'd played with. Probably the best player I played with, the best footy player I played with would be Bobcat, Andrew Ryan. I reckon he was just an out and out sort of war horse. He knew what it took, He was just a team player, and he'd just put his body on the line. He was going to war for you every time,
Yeah.
So he was probably the best player I played with. In terms of playing against teams, far out. There's so many. At the time, obviously the Roosters were a pretty hard team to play against. They were charging.
Did you ever dread playing against a halves pairing or a half that you just thought he was gonna dominate you or anything, or you always went out there confident?
Oh no, I wouldn't say that. I played against Benji a couple of times, and mate, the Tigers are. Well, I suppose the Dogs were a bit of the Tigers' bunnies when I was there. They just played this different style that we couldn't really defend, and Benj was obviously integral to that, So he was pretty scary to play against. I suppose he the more I'm talking about it now, the more it makes me feel awkward, I suppose, because he was so good, You there?
You got your back, Dave?
You got me? You got me?
Yeah. Got ya.
Yeah. It's probably Benji, bro.
Yeah, right. So with the coaching, right? You're there now with the Sharkies. How did you get the opportunity there, and how long you been there in the first grade squad, Dave?
So I moved up to be full-time assistant in 20 when unfortunately John Morris, the club, moved Johnny on. So I was full-time, but I was coaching the 20s. So I had a bit of a hybrid role where I was 20s coach, but oversaw the pathways. And then I'd help out NRL on game day and do the blue shirt. So that was kind of my role originally. I had that 2018, 2019, and 2020, and then in 2021, that's when Johnny got moved on, and I sort of moved up in the interim,
What sort of coach have you got? Like a particular role? They talk about defensive coaches and attacking coaches. Have you got assigned roles, or you just support Fitzgibbon where he needs it?
Yeah, so me and Josh Hannay, we do the attack, and
Yeah.
Fitzy and Steve Price do the D. So it's pretty. We've got defined roles, which is really nice, but it's really sort of open for interpretation. Like Fitzy lets us sort of go with the attacker. He trusts us a fair bit, which is nice. He's got some structures and a philosophy that we have to coach to and coach towards.
Yeah.
But if it's within that boundaries, he sort of really trusts us and lets us implement what we want. And as far as me and Josh go, is I kind of coach the edge attack, last plays, and a bit of spine stuff. And Josh sort of oversees the sort of game plan and style of play.
What's the biggest difference, brother, to when you first started out, and even first, like coming from WA? What's the biggest difference along your journey playing to now stepping on the other side as a coach? Because the game's changed so much as well now in the last sort of 10 years, right?
Yeah, totally. So when we come through, man, it was always like, I don't know, it was, you had to be talented, but it was always hard work. Where the clubs that I and the coaches I played under was always, hard work was number one, and that kind of hasn't changed. But the only thing that sits right next to that is sports science, right? It's gone like it's going to be here forever. Like it's something that's come into the game and it ain't leaving. So that'd be the sort of major change that I've kind of noticed over the time. Just as far as, mate, every step that the boys take is tracked. Every accel, every decel, every step, every high speed meter. So it's a lot, mate. It's a lot, but again, it comes down to what the coach sort of wants to use the sports science for, right? So there's a place in the game for it. You just got to sort of, try to fit it in best as possible into your program. But we kind of use it as a guide for getting our guys to the pinnacle of performance and preparation without making them, trying to keep them in an area where they're sort of never going over the top and exposed to something that's going to break them, but always pushing the limits of preparing the best they can,
How do they monitor the S&C stuff, so the loads and that are all? Because I think back in the day it'd just be, this is what you're doing this week. It's heavy week, it's light week, it's normal week. How's that sort of changed as well? Because they talk about the kids this age group, like this generation, being better athletes too, right?
Yeah. So they get GPS, right? So they GPS unit, and it depends what. So your head of high performance will have his own philosophy, right? So he'll implement that, and it's got to marry up with how you want to play footy, right? There's no point training a way that doesn't suit your style or the way you're trying to play in a game, right? Because they've got to go hand in hand and overlap and intermesh, right? So you got to really try to, get together on that and land somewhere. But basically, it's his sort of program, and our guy has these numbers of high weeks, low weeks, high days, low days, and he'll structure our training around that. And he'll be monitoring that live, so that's on the sideline live. So he'll have guys like, Deej, you're off, Sean, you're off, like different numbers, different weeks. It's just really, it's a lot, mate. It's really detailed, eh? It's really detailed.
Another level,
man.
huh? To another level of professionalism, eh? By the sounds of it all.
Yeah, and crazy. It's gonna stay. It's just, I suppose, how deep you go with it and how much you believe in it and what you want to do with it. Really, I suppose is the main thing.
I know it's not your sort of forte with the gym stuff, Deej, like in terms of you're doing the attacking, but what can a lot of young fellas do you think, like as a coach, what do you look for in young fellas? So give them a few tips, all the young fellas watching, what are you looking for at that sort of level in terms of how they carry themselves, body language, the people that they are, but also work ethic and give them a few little tips on what they need to be good at if they're going to take the next step.
Yeah, I suppose like you know, you always want to see someone that's just willing to compete all the time. So that'd be a trait that'd be a trait that pops out. If you can see someone that's just in the game and competing hard, and he's playing the game in the right way and just going hard would be one of them. One thing that's sort of this underlying frustration for me is at a junior level, like coaches get so bored with coaching the fundamentals for kids, and it just becomes this obsession with running these plays. And there's a place in the game for the plays, but you just need to, like I see too many NRL players get to that level or get to a full-time program and they still can't do the fundamentals right. It's just crazy, you know. So I would always just encourage the kids to, and the coaches, I suppose, it's part of the coaching art to keep coaching the fundamentals, but keep the kids engaged. You know, that's the challenge of trying to be a good coach. So you got to try and keep coaching the same things, but keep the kids engaged and enjoying it. So that'll be the challenge for the coaches, and the challenge for the kids is to just value that, and just have the discipline and the detail to keep getting better at that. You know, because that's the most important thing when they still play NRL. If you can catch them pass, you've got good skill. All that detail stuff around that, you know, you're gonna get coached that every day.
And would you encourage the young fellas to do extras, Deej? Because obviously the ones that are getting their shot are the ones that are doing things while others are sleeping. You know what I mean? The old saying is, you know, they're training while you're sort of sleeping as well. The ones that are fair income committed, or do you think that's overkill and they just need to focus on, doing what they're doing at training 2 or 3 nights a week?
No, mate, they should be getting after it for sure. Yeah, extras for sure, mate. Like the program is, there's only so much you can do. You're never going to train longer than sort of an hour and a half or whatever, you know. So there's only so much you can do in there, and a lot of that stuff is team drills, you know. So you need to be getting after your craft and getting after your individual skills on your own, basically, you know.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, you're getting left behind, bros. You're getting left behind.
Coming out of pre-season, heading into the season now, but you look pretty sharp. And obviously, always the attack's always good too. You got good finishes on the edges, eh? What does a week look like for you, Deej? Like, give the punters, I guess, a little bit of an idea of what the week looks like these days with the coaching and training, lads.
Yeah. So we're lucky, right? So we're a year into Fitzy, year into his philosophy. So we've kind of had a head start on that, which was nice. Through the preseason, we kind of just got to accelerate most of the coaching, you know. So it was nearly all we're a year in front. So it was really nice to get into that, and it was a bit of a shortened preseason too, with the World Cup and some guys coming in and out. So that was nice. So it's allowed us to hit the ground sort of in a good spot. In terms of a week, so basically we're always working sort of like a week in front, and it's basically what turnarounds you get. So we're always clear on what turnarounds the week after, if it's a 6-day model, a 7-day model, or a 5-day model, or whatever that looks like, if it's greater than 7. And then you obviously got to get your ducks in a row for the week. So if it's a traditional 7-day turnaround, we would like what we did on the weekend. We played para. The boys had recovery on the Sunday, come in on the Monday. They did review. They did some more recovery. They had Tuesday off. We call it a D4. So we train 4 days out, 2 days out, 1 day out, and then play. So we try to get our sort of coaching plan in on the D4, basically do all the sort of attack stuff, all the transition footy. The boys have a day off, and then we have it like a D2 day, which is predominantly D focus. So like what we're going to get from the other team, from their attack, and how we're going to defend it, and then we go into our captain's run and we play. And as far as coaching, like it kind of never stops. You got to be reviewing the game, and then you're cutting previewing the game, and then you're watching the session on the drone. You're cutting that session up in the Arvo, and you're sending out clips. So it's like this forever chasing your tail. You're never ahead. You're never ahead. You've always got something to do. It's just a weekly grind. You get some days, some weeks where you get a little bit of a window to have an Arvo off or something, but yeah, very rarely.
Always trying to find that edge too, DJ, like you guys would be, where you can sort of pick the centers apart, huh? Yeah. I've lost your sound, DJ. Lost your sound, DJ. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. What's happened to your phone? You there? Still can't hear you. Can you hear me, DJ? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, DJ? You got me? Can you hear me? We'll try and get DJ back. You got me now? Nah. Shit. I don't know what's. So obviously that was Daniel Holdsworth, just having a yarn to him about coaching as well. In that last little bit, hopefully, can you guys hear me now? Can someone just give an indication whether you can hear me, or is it my line as a whole? Got me? Can you hear me?
How's that?
Yeah, got you.
Nah, can't hear you.
Got me?
I don't know what's happened, bro.
Can you hear me, Deej? I want to try and have a yarn to Deej before we let him go about his experience with Samoa at the World Cup. And then a little bit of, like he talked about Mace. He spent a bit of time with Mace at the Bulldogs, Willie Mason. And Mace is pretty critical of the coaching staff and name Deej as well. When they got copped that Iden early on against England. So I was going to ask him that before we lost him, but we'll see. We'll see if we get him back one more time. But yeah, good chat there, Deej. And I think for the young ones out there, boys and girls that want to make it, it's important to do those extras and focus on the fundamentals. I think that was a big thing from DJ. We'll see if we can get him back on now. You got me now, brother?
Got ya. Sorry, mate.
Yo. I was just saying to the guys while you're gone, we'll try and get you back and have a little chat about the World Cup stuff before I let you go, Deej. But what was the experience like, and how did opportunity come around to be involved with Samoa, Deej?
Yeah, so it happened fairly quick. Oh, I suppose I had enough time to sort of prepare for it. But Andrew Webster, who's now the Warriors head coach, he was the assistant
Yeah.
coach at Samoa, right? So obviously him getting that job opened up an opportunity. And then the head coach of Samoa is Matt Parrish, who was my coach at Salford. So that was the connection there. So yeah, he just gave me a call out of the blue one day, and I hadn't
Yeah.
spoken to him since I was in England. So yeah, he just asked to have a coffee and then asked if I wanted to do the job. So yeah, it sort of went from there, man. I was yeah, like it kind of set me back a little bit. I was excited from it, but pretty nervous. Working with different
Yeah.
players and going to a World Cup, it's a different sort of beast. So, but yeah, I loved it, mate. Had an unreal time. Unreal time.
How was learning the different culture as well, brother? I'd imagine they would have took you under their wing, and you're probably one of the brothers now to them as well. But talk to us about
Yeah,
that cultural immersion stuff you all went through over the 4 to 6 week period.
yeah. Well, I was away for 7.5 weeks, mate. So it was a long time. It was unreal. So I've always been a cultural guy. I love all the
Mm.
different cultures. So I wasn't sort of nervous about it. I was excited about it. I love the All Islander lads. So it was really cool. They have the Tuolungi brothers. I don't know if you heard about them, but they're famous footy Samoan family. Look them up if you haven't. There's about, I don't know, there's 8 of them. They all play rugby union. One's playing for England at the moment, rugby union. But Freddie Tuolungi is the eldest of all the brothers. So he's the chief entertainment officer, right? So we get to England and he's just shirts off, singing. He's on every bus trip. He's got a boom box. He gets you up dancing. You've got no choice. He just calls you up. Next thing you're at the front, you're just dancing around. Like, I can't dance. I'm just a skinny, bald white guy trying to dance like an Islander. Like, yeah, he just bridges that gap straight away of just everyone connecting and having a good time. And yeah, so he's unreal for the culture. But in terms of like footy, mate, it was unreal. Like obviously our team was super talented, so rocking up the training and seeing those young kids get after it and the standard that they hold themselves to and the standard they train at was pretty impressive. So it kind of made my job easier, right? They love their footy, they love learning, super engaged, easy to coach, really coachable, open to feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was awesome, mate. It was awesome.
What was it like, Deja? I was just talking to the viewers as we lost you, but you talked a little bit about Mace and the connection you had with Mace at the Dogs, and Mace was pretty critical of you guys, huh? The coaching staff.
Yeah.
He
Oh yeah.
named you and talked about the connection and how could you even be coaching when you haven't even got a connection and all this sort of stuff after he's got smacked
Yeah.
by 50 or 40 the first game.
Yeah.
Like, how does
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
that in camp, Deej?
Oh, mate. Like, to be honest, like, my respect for Matty Parrish grew through the campaign. Like, I had a player coach relationship with him, so it was different when we got there. Like, it was coach relationship, right? So he was unreal with me. He sort of just said, mate, I need you to own it. You got to go. He sort of just let me be. So I would run all the sessions and I'd do all the attack. And Matt sort of just overseen sort of, I don't know, the program, but just everything for 7 weeks. He looked
Yeah,
after all the boys, stuff that they wouldn't even see. They wouldn't even get that he did it right. So, and I could see it, mate. So he did an unreal job in that terms. But he's got a thick skin, mate. Like he knew what Mace was getting into him about. So,
mm,
but he never aired it. He never brought it to light. He didn't give it any oxygen, But he knew. But he owned it. And as far as Mace saying that to me, like, I know Mace, he's got his own opinion, man. He's always going to be like that. I love him. I know he's got time for me, but I didn't really care, man. To be honest, I'm a young coach just having a crack at it, Like,
yeah,
I'm not a veteran. I haven't won premierships or anything, but I distinctly remember coming home from that bus. Like, we played England and Newcastle, right? And
yeah,
so it's like Newcastle up your way coming back to Sydney. So it's similar time, 3 hours on the bus, right? So I've been with Samoa for 1 week, right? And I'm just getting to know the lads. I'm just getting to know the culture. And, these boys have come off a grand final. Like 10 blokes have come in on the Sunday. They've had a week on the drink. They've jet lagged. They're playing England 6 days later. So they're like England, like, not to put a dampener on it, but England were the best prepared team of World Cup history, right? They've got a home nation. They got the first game in Newcastle. Like, they've been together for 6 to 8 weeks. Like, and our boys just part of their best attribute is how confident they are, right? So they just go, "No, we've got this. We'll be right. Like, we'll be right. We've got this." They trained well, but like clearly didn't have it. Like England just were charging, right? So I remember coming home, got on the bus, coming back down from Newcastle. I'm just like, holy smokes, like I'm on the tools already. I've got the laptop open. I'm going, I'm not up to this. What am I doing here? Like, we just got beat by 60. I just remember going, far out, I need to go home. Like, this ain't for me, But it was awesome, mate. Like, yeah.
It was instrumental in turning it all around and then making that charge, and getting to the final. It was instrumental in all that, fella.
Junior was the key, man. He like they all were, but Junior's a stand-up man. Like, he's a leader of men. Like, he just owned the room, owned the group, spoke from the heart, and they're all on board with it. Like, there was no one not there for the right reasons.
Yeah.
We just got dished in the first game that we were unprepared for and weren't ready for that standard yet. So. They always, again, part of their best attribute was they're so confident, mate. They're so confident in their own ability. They were just like, no, we'll be right. We'll be right. We've got this. And, mate, they were.
And you saw a lot of them footballers, obviously, throughout the years, Deej, but who impressed you within that 6 weeks, as a person and as a player?
Yeah, probably the three that stand out to me, or like Junior would be the number one. I've got a lot of time for Junior and the way he carried himself as a person, as an athlete. Like, he was a standout. But the three probably keys were Joey being so young, making that call not to play for Australia and play for Samoa. I thought that was ballsy, mate, and he put a lot on the line, and you could see him sort of carry that weight early days in the camp, and then as he got into the camp, he grew and grew and grew, and I feel like he was sort of instrumental and pretty impressive in what he did in that time. Stephen Crichton, he amazed me from the start, just the standard of how he's trained and how he prepared and how diligent he was for such a young guy. He's just a freaky athlete, and he's just forever chasing details and wanting to get better and looking for different opportunities to get better. And the moment they're good fun. They like a good time and bagging and hooting and hollering and singing and that. But as soon as they get on the footy field, like, it's just this, something goes in their head and they're on, which is it's kind of ingrained in them, I suppose, through that Penrith system. And then Jerome was amazing, man. Like, to put 3 man of the match performances back to back, like, it was pretty impressive. He gets hammered pillar to post, Jerome, and they like to have a crack at him, and but he just he owns it, and he backs himself, and the proof's in the way he plays, man. So he was pretty impressive to work with. He's a bit of a hard nut, Jerome. He doesn't give you much, you got to sort of sausage you out, and he tested me as a coach, to see if he sort of believed in what I'm saying. But I feel like by the end of our camp, we had good respect for each other, which was nice.
What about with the Sharkies, Deej? Coming out of pre-season, couple of rounds in now, you're going good. Who's impressed you over the pre-season? Who's someone that or a couple of young fellas that we should look at throughout the year as well?
Yeah. There's a couple of them. Like poor Cade Dykes did his knee in the preseason down at camp in Wollongong. So he's going to be out for the year, unfortunately, but he's got a good future. Adam Dykes is young bloke, Cade. So he's got a big future, man. He's a big, raw athlete, a lot of ability. Luckily, he's only young still, so he's got a huge future here. And Jesse Colquhoun would be the other one. He's a young sort of front rower, edge back rower. He probably would have played round 1 and round 2 somewhere in the mix there, but he had a syndesmosis injury too in the trial. So luckily he won't be too long. These days it's only sort of 6 to 8 weeks. So he's sort of coming to the end of his rehab. So I'd keep an eye out for him. He'll definitely get some games this year.
Yeah. What about the current crop that are playing at the moment? Who impressed you? Like, who was really sharp? Did you get me there, Deej?
Oh, you got me, bro.
Yeah,
Dropping
I was
out.
saying, who was pretty sharp in the off season from the current crop?
Mate,
looking forward to seeing a lot more of.
I reckon Britton Nakora is in for a big year. Yeah, he had a really good preseason. Come back from the World Cup with a lot of confidence. Got to pump in sort of 4 or 5 weeks before he played a game. He's played 2 real good games. He's sort of coming into that sort of 3rd, 4th year of playing first grade, so he understands what it's about now. So I reckon he's in for a big year, mate. Yeah.
And before we let you go, brother, what's the future hold for you? How many years you signed for, and what would what are you sort of striving for? Any goals?
Oh, mate, I got one more year here at the moment. Sort of in the interim of discussion of a new contract, which is nice. It'd be my preference to stay, so I'd try to navigate through that, bro. And mate, as far as like, I'd be damned to say I want to be a head coach, Shawnee, but I just pursuit to be the best coach I can be at the moment. If that lands me, in that sort of, if I'm up to it, then and the opportunity arises, then I'll definitely sort of put some thought in.
Lost Deej again there, but hopefully he comes back in so we can thank him for his time. Obviously, a couple of rounds of footy, guys. I haven't really looked at a lot of footage this year as yet, and as you know, last year we looked at a fair bit of footage and done previews and recaps of rounds week in, week out. Because we've had another lengthy sort of yarn here, this is going on an hour now, so I don't want to keep this any longer. So we might have a look at some footage and touch on some football next week, talk about who's been going well as a team and individuals. Obviously, my team, the Broncos, I was impressed with them. And young Reece Walsh was standout. We talk about game changers. And, why we sort of named the program Game Changers, well, he was every bit that on the weekend. So looking forward to seeing how he is performing consistently, though, because obviously everyone will be onto him now. He's got that speed. He beat Hickle a few times and created some things on the edges there. So I think a lot of edge defenses will be onto him now and probably try and get up earlier and shut him down, take his time away from him, put more numbers around him. So interested to see how he goes. But I think Manly were pretty impressive. Tigers are really disappointing. I know a lot of people are talking about them being, at reserve grade level and they need to improve a lot more and all that sort of stuff. And I mirror that as well and say the same thing. I think that they've been really, really poor. I don't know. Talking about Brooks, young Wakeman gets a shot off the bench this week. He might be the long-term future for him because I think Brooks' time's up. He'll probably end up in England, if not at the end of the year, halfway through the year. I don't know how long they're going to give him, but I talk I talked a fair bit about the halves that were out and about last year, and we talked about Scotty Drinkwater being a good fit for down this way. The Bulldogs or even Newcastle at the time before they signed Milford. And now the Cowboys have locked him up long term, and he's the fullback option there. But I just think someone like Braden Trindle, who's come off a bench for the Sharks, obviously starting now, but when Nico Hines comes back, he'll probably be on the bench again. And someone like that is ready, to fill a halfback spot in the NRL. I think it'd be a perfect fit for a club like Canterbury. Canterbury's struggling again, and I don't think they got a good win over Melbourne last week, but Melbourne won't perform like that again all year. That'll be a guarantee. But I just think that Canterbury are trying to build something strong there with Gould and Serraldo, but your generals have to be confident, and at the moment they just don't look like a team that can cut the mustard in first grade. If Burton's going to be strong, he needs a good leader around him in the halves, and I just think someone like Trindle is probably the next best halfback that's not starting week in, week out. So let's see how that goes. Obviously, the Knights got a win last week against the Tigers, who everyone was pretty critical of. So we'll see how they go tomorrow night against the Dolphins, who've started really well. It's good for those guys as well, because obviously a lot of guys that were come from good clubs like Melbourne and Para, and Kurt Donahue, who we had on last week, was pretty high praise for someone like Tom Gilbert as well, who came from the Cowboys. So a lot of these guys have put their faith in the club and driving the standards there. So it was good for them to get 2 wins straight off the bat as well, and they get a live chance against Newcastle again tomorrow night, no doubt. So for them, I think it'll be a shot in the arm if they can come out and go three from 3. So we'll see how that one plays out as well. But the big one for me this week, obviously, is tomorrow night's game as well. Roosters and Rabbitohs, that blockbuster local derby down at Allianz as well. That'll be close to packed house, I would imagine. So it'd be good to see how South Sydney respond as well. Roosters have been going not too bad. Had a loss in the first game against the Dolphins, and then last week the game against the Warriors was in the balance. I don't think either side looks particularly strong. I think South Sydney should come out and beat the Roosters, but being a local derby, there's a lot more to it in this game than any other game. So no doubt the Roosters will rise to the occasion. I think with the stuff that South had to sort of deal with last week with Latrell as well, with that young fella who was in a Roosters jersey out at Penrith, 15-year-old. I think what the coaching staff done now, and particularly the coach Jason Demetriou, come out and backed his players and wants to stamp that out. I think they'll get a lot of confidence from that as well. The respect that they'll have for him and the opposing coach who came out and said what he said too around Indigenous voices, strong Indigenous voices have been sort of try to be hushed for a long time. So a lot of society might not like that. I think that was good for him to come out and have a say on it as well. A couple of strong coaches there, one who's a veteran, one who's only a couple of years in. So I'm looking forward to that clash, and I think that they deserve a lot of respect for taking a stance on the stuff that happened last week. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, next week we'll sit down and we'll break down the first 3 rounds. I promise you, we'll have a look at some footy next week. I spoke to Big Georgie Rose last couple of days, and he said definitely locked in next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. So hopefully we'll get George next week on a Wednesday at 6. We'll promote that all week. We'll have a yarn to him about his career, but also want to talk to him about the fight last week and how they all got into it. And like Matty obviously started it all out, but you got the 3 brothers there, Matty, Trent, and Georgie. Georgie does a lot of talking. Trent's a lot a lot more in the background. So we'll talk to George about that as well, where it all came from, No Limit, and the promotional stuff. I know the boys were, Matty was player manager with the league stuff, but and then come across to doing the boxing show. So we'll talk to George about the journey there as well to, now becoming the number one boxing promoters in the country by a fair stretch too. Like the shows they put on are unbelievable. We went down there to look at the fight on Sunday, and it just gets better and better. We've been to about 6 or 8 of the shows now. We went down there when he fought the Japanese guy in a way, and it was electric that night. But on Sunday it was, just as good, if not better, and the occasion was bigger as well. And we've been watching a fair bit of boxing, and the guys that he's going to come up against and that are in his division, and we had a bit of doubt, but I think the other day, I'm sure there would have been other guys as well that have had doubt whether he can take the next step. And as we know, Harrison is the only guy to beat Charlo, who's undisputed at Zoo's weight class. So he knocked him out in 9, and I think he done it better than Charlo did. So, in the return fight with Harrison and Charlo. But I think he's sort of made me a believer that maybe he can go across there now and take the chocolates from Charlo. So, really looking forward to having a yarn with Georgie, and hope you guys will tune in again next Wednesday from 6 p.m. As we chat to Georgie Rose. Thanks again to DJ for coming on tonight. I'll convey that message through Insta to DJ. But thanks for watching, guys. That's episode 6 in the bank, season 2. Stick with us. And I know there's a lot of footy to be played over the weekend. A lot of the juniors are starting to play trials. So remember, if you've got young ones there, if you've got a camera out and you catch some footage of some stuff that you think is really deadly, send it in. We've got a little game changer of the week. We'll give out a little gift to our game changer of the week as well. So if you got any video from the upcoming week, send it through, and then we'll play it all next week, and we'll pick a little winner there, and we'll do that week to week. So enjoy your footy, and we'll see you next week, Wednesday at 6 p.m. with Georgie Rose. Thanks again, guys. Yeah.